Hello, this is John with Brainstorm Comics and Gaming, and this is this week's episode of Turning the Page. This week we are joined by Chandler, Mr. Sizzle Zirkle. He is, I'm sure you guys are familiar with him for standing behind the counter, being one of our, well, I don't know how long you've worked here at this point, maybe, like 2.5 years, something like that?
Three
years, something like that?
Yeah.
But he's joining us for our discussion of the topics of the week. But before we begin that, I wanted to know how you felt being ranked number 7 on the comic book employees across the country list.
You know, everybody's got an opinion, but some people are wrong.
You think you should have ranked higher than that?
Obviously, I should have ranked higher than that. Come on, 7?
So that leads us into the first topic of the week. Chandler and I were perusing a top 10 list for the best Spider-Man artist of all time. And the list was kind of peculiar.
You could say that.
There were definitely some ones that you and I disagreed with. So what do you think were the highlights and lowlights of that list?
I mean, I think the highlights, I think any good list of people attached to Spider-Man, you're going to have Steve Ditko, you're going to have John Romita Sr., you're going to have a couple people like that. Should have Todd McFarlane. You could argue some other people from that 8 a little bit there, but for a solid 3, I think on everybody's top 10, if you're a thinking person, if you're correct, if you're familiar with the character, you should at least have Steve Ditko, John Romita Sr., and Todd McFarlane somewhere in your top 5.
So let's start with the high, or I guess the lowlights to a certain degree. Todd McFarlane coming in at number 5 feels like kind of a slight for him, seeing as he's kind of defined the modern look of Spider-Man. The big eyes, the spaghetti webbing, like everybody imitates that style right now,
right,
and have for 30 years at this point.
Long time. A lot of people don't know Todd McFarlane's the reason why they think Spider-Man looks that way, but he is for most people.
And they had him ranked at number 5. Now, what made that even worse, I know to both of us, is who they had ranked ahead of him. We'll start with Mark Bagley. Now, he had a long run on Ultimate Spider-Man, which obviously probably contributed to him being ranked as high as he did. To me, longevity doesn't mean that you necessarily had a huge impact, though. It just means that you were a good enough artist and fast enough. During his heyday, they were doing, I believe, 18 issues a year for Ultimate Spider-Man, so that also helped him get his run up faster because his style is not as detailed as McFarlane. I know you heard me joke earlier that when I want to go to sleep tonight, I count the 100 Mark Bagley Ultimate Spider-Man covers. They are very boring and bland, especially for a top-selling book at that time. I don't know if you have any strong opinions.
I think you have the nostalgia factor tied in a lot with Mark Bagley. I think he's a name that anybody who was reading Spider-Man around that time, looking back on it, I think you always look back on things with rose-colored glasses, so you can just remember the name and like, oh yeah, like Mark Bagley worked on that forever, and like I loved Spider-Man and everything, and you might be painting a better picture than what you actually saw. Certainly, I don't think he belongs ahead of Todd McFarlane. Not to say he's a terrible artist, but I don't think he belongs ahead of Todd McFarlane.
Ron Friens was on that list. I believe he was number 7. And for those of you who didn't see the list, we'll link that in the description for this video, so you can look at it and laugh at.
Judge it for yourselves.
But Ron Friens was, I'm not saying he's a terrible artist, but I wouldn't say he's one of the top 10 on Spider-Man. But then we get to the one that you and I disagree with probably the most, and that's John Romita Jr.
It's not just that he was on there, it's that he was so far ahead
number
of
2.
His father. He almost took the number 1 spot. And I mean, again, and obviously, like, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Everybody likes everybody.
Art is objective.
Factually, if you like John Romita Jr.'s art, you don't know what good art looks like because he is not a talented person. The reason why he's on that list is because his father was so good at drawing Spider-Man, and he was able to use that to get a career. And again, I'm not saying everything he's done is abysmal, and sure, some of his work on Spider-Man was all right, it was okay, but it is not a top 10, and it is not a number 2 all time.
I'm not saying he's terrible. I think he is good at layouts, but I think for detail and
just faces.
And I was going to say, if you're looking for blockheads, if you're looking for somebody to draw Minecraft the comic, I think he's your.
You want everyone to look exactly the same, man, child, alien, doesn't matter. That's your guy.
Yeah, I think if you want to do Minecraft the comic, you want to hire John Romita Jr. He can get those blockheads just right.
Just right.
But I do think his layouts are good. but in terms of like detail, like in terms of memorable and ones that you go like, oh my god, yeah, I want to read or look at that
In
art.
the top 10 all time of an incredibly popular character, you wouldn't really want him anywhere near the
So
the
who
top
would you
two.
put in your top 10 that were not in the top 10?
I think if we're talking in terms of covers, I know that Alex Ross has done a lot of covers there. I know he doesn't always do interior work. I mean, Alex Ross kind of does whatever he wants now at this point because
Yeah.
of
He's
the
Alex
reputation, yes, that he's received. But I think anywhere he's touched that, I think J. Scott Campbell is better than some of the people they had on there, and certainly in terms of detail. He's more detailed, and especially in terms of people and characters, than John Romita Jr. I'm not saying J. Scott Campbell should be number 2, but I'm saying that if you're putting somebody like that in the number 2 spot, all the rules are off the table, and you can put any way you want in that category.
I would put Mark Brooks on there. I love Mark Brooks' art. He doesn't do as much interiors as he used to either.
Yeah.
Sal Buscema, John Buscema, both of them great interior artists. Stuart Eminem did a great run on Spider-Man. Gil Kane, can't go without mentioning. Although he was not on I think he was on 2 of the top 10 lists
He's
that
not
we
on most
looked
people's lists at all. Didn't know who he was. People
and-
thought he was Bob Kane and got it all mixed up.
Mike Wieringo would definitely be on my top 10 list. He was an amazing artist. But I do want to go back to Todd McFarlane one more time in terms of, we looked at probably 10 different lists, 15 different lists, and Todd McFarlane was at the mid-level of all of them.
Some of them he was 8 or 9. He was very he was not getting any. I don't know what he did. I don't know if his comments about Venom
Punched some grandmother
really
on.
sparked an outrage that the guy who drew Spider-Man for so long, how dare he say Venom should just be a villain and not be an anti-hero. But they were not showing him very much. I mean, he was included on the list, but I mean, the people they were putting ahead of him, it kind of seemed like a slap in the face for, like we said, completely realizing what most people think of Spider-Man in the modern day. Most people try to copy what Todd McFarlane did, and to put him at 5 was, I think, the lowest we saw on pretty much any list.
Yeah. So we'll turn the page off of that. We'll come back to that. Maybe we'll revisit some other top 10 lists and see and give our opinions on why they are either correct or incorrect.
Or terrible.
Yes. So moving on to the next topic. CGC has fallen way behind. They had more submissions than they expected for the Kevin Eastman signing, which I don't know how you can underestimate what people were going to do at that point. Turtle Mania was back in full swing after Last Ronin came out, and it seems like this blockage has kind of come up after that Last Ronin one. I would have signed.
You should have seen the writing in the wind.
I would have either capped it at a certain number, or
You have, especially with how far behind they are just in general with everything. I would have capped it.
or possibly even extend how many days he was going to be in the facility. So CGC did an announcement on their boards, on the message boards, and they said that in order to alleviate that, they are going to send the Kevin Eastman books to him. I hope to his office,
Sitting
not to
at
his
his
house.
coffee table every morning when he's getting up to have himself a cup of coffee. He's got his feet on your CGC books and signing away.
Do you think this is a good idea?
No, I don't think this is a good idea. I think this sets a very dangerous precedence of people, the fact remains, like you said, whether it is his office or his home, which again, hopefully at least that's a place of business, but it is no longer in CGC's possession.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying that Kevin Eastman is a ne'er-do-well or somebody we shouldn't trust. I don't know him at all.
Using TMNT once the latest cigars.
But I don't know him at all. I'm sure he's a fine guy, but that's a dangerous, slippery slope to be sending these books out to just creators' homes, or to just anything can happen regularly in the mail. But especially if you're sending them to different properties or anything. But also if you're making that public announcement that, hey, here these books are at this guy's place or whatever, you might be giving unwanted heat and attention to that creative person as well.
So here's my problems with it. Number one, you've now added 2 more shippings to it. The customer is sending it to CGC. CGC is sending it to him. He's then sending it back, and then CGC is sending it, or encapsulating it and sending it back.
A lot of
to you.
chances for something to go wrong.
So you have opportunities for it to get lost. You have opportunities for it to get damaged. You have lots of bad opportunities in that scenario.
Yeah.
Number 2, is Kevin Eastman taking it as seriously that he has somebody else's book in his possession as necessarily CGC would? And I'm not saying that he would do it on purpose, but I mean, what safeguards do they have in place to ensure that he's going to put the right book in the right box?
Right.
How is he even sorting them?
It's a lot of questions that we don't have answers to.
So, I mean, do they have a CGC guy go to his house with him and make sure that Like, is he spending the week with Kevin Eastman while he's signing these? Like,
My week with Kevin.
because CGC is very, I don't know if you know, but they're very secretive about their grading process. So something tells me they're not going to be very open about their process for how this is going to go either. To me, like, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on CGC. I'm not trying to cast aspersions, like I said, on Kevin Eastman. It just seems to me that there's a lot of questions about how this would be handled in a way that ensured everybody would be happy and getting the right book and the like.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything further to add.
No, like I said, I think it's a dangerous precedence, and if you're allowing it for Kevin Eastman, well then who knows who else you're going to send it to? And like you said, I mean the biggest factor is it's always a gamble when you send your book out and you pack. I mean, you can package it as tightly and safely as you want, but anything can happen. It can get dropped. Something can happen to it in the truck
and
anywhere.
You've added 2 more
just
times.
between CGC and back to you. But now you've added 2 more trips for something to go wrong with that book. Again, may not be anybody's fault, but at the end of the day, if your book's damaged,
it could be USPS's
right?
fault.
At the end of the day, if it's damaged and something happens to your copy, you're not going to really care how it happened. It's going to be damaged.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think that's a good idea, but I guess we will see once people start getting their graded books back and we see either complaints or people being happy with maybe CGC will give them a bonus half grade on their books.
Probably not.
No, probably not. So we will turn the page on that topic. We will revisit that one, as I said, when we start seeing people returning their books. I will say I am glad I did not send off the couple of books to get signed that I initially was going to for that signing, because I would be scared that mine would be in that stack. But we will move on to the number 3 topic of this week, and that is over the last year. We've been dealing with the pandemic. A lot of stores, I won't say folded up in terms of, but they kind of became kind of lax and like they were taking the pandemic to heart. Maybe became a little depressed. We kind of went in the opposite direction. We dug in. We added more things to the store. We added some fixtures. We used it to expand and grow our inventory. What do you think were the highlights that we did? Which ones are you most proud of over the last year?
I think the big thing for me, I mean, obviously being a comic book fan first and foremost, I think just the time that we were alluded to, we did, like everybody else, we were shut down for a little while. The store was closed down for about 6 weeks. And during that time, we were able to do a lot of projects that we were already trying to get to, but it gave us that time that we didn't necessarily want, but we didn't have any choice. So we had to just sit there and do something. And we were able to unload.
We did a lot of deliveries also.
Yes.
I got to see a lot of Frederick I had not seen before.
Yes,
so that was pretty
That was a cool experience. But I think the amount of books that we were able to put out, and there's been a couple big overhauls since that initial shutdown of the pandemic. But I mean, now, especially at the Walkersville location, the back issue section, if you haven't been in there recently, is just, I mean, night and day. Like, it was already large to begin with, but just thousands upon thousands of books that we've been able to add onto there, that we've been able to add to not only our back issue collection, our eBay collection, things we've been able to get graded. And
we definitely grew our eBay store last year.
And even just cool finds, not something that's maybe not worth thousands of dollars, but just a really cool book that, when you're going through and you're digging and you're finding all these books and being able to put them out, just really cool, little treasures that we've been able to discover and put out there. But I think definitely if you are a collector, if you're a comic book fan, I mean, you need to come to the Walkersville location. Like, it is one of the biggest back issues collection of anywhere in the area. And
graded
there's a lot
books.
of good
we
stuff.
Definitely dedicated ourselves to the graded books, especially the racks of how we display them. I think that's something we're all very proud of.
Mm-hmm.
The YouTube channel that you're watching right now, we definitely put a lot of time and effort into that. We want to thank Jason for helping us put that together also. He helped get us the equipment and everything. We did try a couple of online Facebook auctions, which didn't work out quite as well as we were hoping. Don't worry, we will try again. I just, me, I have a lot of things in my mind and not enough time to actually put them into motion at the time that I would like to, but we will get to them, I promise. But like I said, I think the thing I enjoyed most anyway was visiting people. I mean, obviously I didn't go into their house, but just seeing more of Frederick and how widely dispersed throughout Frederick County that our customers are. Like, when I saw how far some people come to our store, that made me very proud that people were willing to travel that far and come see us. And I want to thank everybody who showed support. Another cool thing was we had people that I had not seen in a long time like call me up and like, hey, how can we make sure you guys are gonna get through the pandemic?
A lot of people.
We had some people. We had. I'm not gonna say the last name, but we have Jessica up in New York. She ordered a bunch of things. She's been a longtime supporter of the store. We mailed it out to her. She was very understanding also because the mail lost it for about a month and a half.
Yeah.
But it finally did get to her, and like I said, thankfully she was very understanding and I don't know. Like I said, there were a lot of good things that came out of the pandemic.
Absolutely. We were fortunate. Like you said, a lot of businesses were not able to have the same success rate, but because of, in large part, because of our customers and like the dedicated people here that love the store, as much as everybody else, they literally reached out and say, we want to support you. We like, how are you doing? We want to make sure that store doesn't, like a lot of stores were closing down. They were like, we want to make sure that doesn't happen both in the Walkersville and the downtown location.
And we ended up having a great year last year, despite everything. And this year we're off even to a better start. So like I said, there were just a lot of things that I think we did very well. And like I said, it would also help that we had such a strong support from our customer base. We have a long history in Frederick, and people appreciate what we've done for them over the last 3.5 decades. So we plan on being here another 3.5 decades. So we will see how that goes. But again, we just want to thank everybody for their support and allowing us to do the things that we did over the last year.
Absolutely.
So we will turn the page on that one. I'm sure we still probably have a little bit more left of the pandemic, so we have a lot more plans also. So we'll do an overall thing probably once things go back to normal and probably highlight all the things that we have done and all of that. So we'll turn the page on that topic for right now, though, and we will move on to our large topic of the week, and that is the industry is growing by leaps and bounds right now. A lot of people have extra money because of the stimulus checks, and those who don't need it for necessity seem to be putting it into collectibles and the like. We also have Disney Plus adding fuel to the fire of the industry growing. In order to keep that going, what would you suggest the industry do in order to continue that growth?
Well, I think a lot of what's already being done is good for the industry. I think for the longest time, people were like, okay, we have to be like Marvel and DC, we have to make a big budget film. We have to get onto like the big screen. Like we have to do something. But now, in large part, not solely based on comic, properties, but HBO and other things and like that television show, Netflix, Hulu, televisions have become very, very popular TV shows and streaming services. And a lot of, creatives are saying, well, we could make a big budget movie, or we can make this TV show, we can make this special, we can do these little things, and a lot of streaming services are interested. So you see so many books, and before it was just Marvel and DC, a couple, big, really big name things, but now there are things that are just coming out, indie comics that are being auctioned for television shows and specials almost immediately. Berserker, like a lot of things, as soon as they're coming out, people are saying, hey,
Shadecraft,
this is a really good idea. Right, this is a really great idea. I like what's going on here. Like people need to see this, and that opens the door by having that access to it and so much of that influence out there that opens the door for you to then come back into the source material. And once you kind of dive in and you get going, it's a bit of an addiction. You start reading comics, it kind of your list gets longer and longer.
So that's why I won't say I laugh, but I kind of shake my head at when people go, there might be superhero fatigue coming on or something like that. Comics are a lot more than just superheroes.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, Shadecraft, yes, there are kind of like superhero elements to it, but it's not a superhero book. Gideon Falls is definitely not a superhero book.
Department of Truth,
not a superhero book. Not a superhero book. I would compare that one more to X-Files meets kind of, I don't know, a little bit even more Acid. Supernatural than meets Grant Morrison.
Yes.
But I don't know. I feel like the material out there is so diverse right now. Yes, Marvel and DC do focus on superheroes, but there is a lot more out there than just that. And Hollywood is mining not just that superhero genre. They're going outside of that and looking at the top tier books, or maybe even not the top tier books, maybe books that have slid past people and like, hey, this one sounds like a cool concept. We already got it storyboarded. because of the comic.
Right.
Let's run with it.
And smaller companies too, not just Image and Dark Horse and the big ones you think of for independents. They're companies you might not have heard of at all, but you kind of know the title, and they're getting auctioned off for a series as well. Like, they are looking and they're just saying, what is going to be a good story, which I think is how everybody should look at everything when you're reading something you enjoy. What makes the story great? Can I turn this into something that people, into a medium that people can watch via the streaming services? And they're not just looking at DC, Marvel, and Image and the big ones. They're looking for just good stories all across the board.
And I think that's why Marvel and Disney are smart by doing like Strange Academy. Strange Academy, yes, it has superheroes in it, but it's really more magic based, so it can have a cross appeal outside of just like those who generally like superheroes.
And a younger audience, so it's not just, adults in capes flying around punching things.
Exactly. Plus, in addition to that, I think Disney just announced that they crossed 100 million subscribers to Disney Plus. One of my least favorite influencers on YouTube, Comic Tom, mentioned, if 5% of them, buy comics, then that's a huge increase in the industry, which is a good point. I mean, they have more access to those titles, and Disney, I'm sure, are going to start putting like the movies on the streaming service as well as the theater. Maybe charge a premium for the added content for the movie that releasing that week. I would say one thing that I would suggest that they should do if they want to keep the momentum going, and this goes to DC, it goes to Marvel, it goes even to like if they do the Shadecraft TV show, if they do the Department of Truth TV show, put a little thing at the beginning of each one of your TV shows or movies talking about the comic shop locator. And you don't have to plug any particular comic book shop. Just let people be aware that they can find more material. As we mentioned in, I think, last week's Turning the Page, Disney is a very synergistic company, so it shocks me that they haven't even done it at this point.
Right.
It doesn't hurt them. I mean, it'll be like 30 seconds. You already have the actor on set, so pull them aside, do like a half-hour shoot or whatever, trim it down to 30 seconds. Like, oh, you like me as Captain America? You want more of my adventures? Head on over to Comic Shop Locator, type in your zip code. You can find hundreds of more adventures of me. You don't have to wait 3 years for the next movie. You don't have to wait half a year for the next season.
Right.
There's a lot of synergy to be had there.
And you're double dipping for money in Marvel's pockets. You're getting it from the movie, and you're getting, from a business standpoint, it certainly makes sense. I think Marvel is almost at the point now, which is crazy to say, but it's almost like they don't even need that type of money, so that might not be their focus. But certainly smaller companies and books and Image and even DC that don't necessarily have the notoriety of being a Marvel movie yet.
So here's the thing. One of the things that people say is that the print doesn't matter to any of these companies. They make their money off the licensing, they make their money off the movies, they make their money off of all the like subsidiary stuff, not the print stuff. But two things. Number one, most of the material comes straight from the comic books. Maybe they tweak it a little bit. But it also doesn't cost you anything to
No.
like let's say that Comic Tom is right and that you can get those 5 million people who are very vested in like Falcon. That's a huge increase over the readership that is currently out there.
Yeah.
Like that's either 5 to 10 times like what the actual readership is out there. That kind of growth would be phenomenal. Those profits would be phenomenal. And don't get me wrong, it's still small change compared to the other ones. But for minimal effort to get that money out of there,
right.
Why wouldn't you do it?
And at the end of the day, this is the source material. You need the source material for the other things. So all these people who love, these movies and these television shows, you have the comics to thank for that. If the comics aren't able to continue, if those creatives aren't able to keep writing, don't have those people coming in and purchasing the materials, you're not going to have those same stories. Yes, they'd probably still continue, but would they be the same quality? Probably not.
So they have a dedicated focus group that is paying them to test their stories for them.
Right.
Why you wouldn't exploit that to an even further degree? And like I said, I'm not blaming Marvel.
Right.
I'm not blaming DC. I'm blaming all of them.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's a lost opportunity there. And I know some people are going to go, well, you're vested in them doing... Like, no, again, there would be very little cost involved in it to improve your profits. And yes, I would benefit from it too. I'm not... But
everybody would in the long run.
Exactly. That would probably be my main suggestion for them to continue the ball rolling and growing the industry even further. They're definitely hitting the market pretty strong in like cartoons, like you said, TV show. Like they're hitting everything. Mm-hmm. But I think that would... I think there's still a large number of people out there who aren't familiar that comic shop exists. I know DC was trying to get over that with like the Walmart deal that they have, and Marvel has some books in Walmart now. I don't think that that's necessarily the way. I'm not saying that's not a way to go, and I'm not saying it's a bad way to go. I'm saying if you really want to grow your market, I don't think that will necessarily do it. I mean, you might get like a checkout purchase here and there, but I don't think you're going to create any dedicated readers. But we'll turn the page on that. We will come back to it in the future. I'm sure we'll come up with even more ideas as to how we think the industry could continue its growth. And that brings us to our quick takes topic. Every industry needs their bad boy or bad girl that kind of like is a lightning rod for the industry, the one that collects all the bad publicity. Major League Baseball has the New York Yankees. NFL up until last year had the Patriots.
Not anymore.
Now I guess it's either Tampa Bay or KC that people are hating right now.
Yeah.
So who is the writer, artist, or character that you feel elicits that kind of reaction within the industry?
I think right off the bat, I mean, the first person, we were just kicking around the idea. I think when you think of somebody coming to your book and people going like, oh, or like running away, I think a big person would be Rob Liefeld. And I know there are some people from back in the 80s that are like clutching their chest and like, how dare you say that? Like, I love the X-Men. I loved it, all these things. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's not like a death sentence to your book, but there are people, and again, he's not necessarily like doing that much work. He'll do a cover here and there. He's not super big in the industry anymore, but I mean, just learn how to draw feet, Rob. Like it's not, I mean,
a background.
Just something.
The background is the thing
like,
that annoys me more than the feet, honestly.
You've had so many years now to be in the business, to like hone your craft, and it's like you're going the other way with it. Like you're running away with it now.
I think he's embracing it though, because he made fun of himself with the pouch thing. Like he created that character named the pouch. Yeah. That was just a pouch.
I mean, you kind of got to laugh at yourself if you take yourself that seriously. Not a lot of people are going to be on that train with you.
So I mean, I agree with you though. He definitely is one of the lightning rods within the industry. You and I had discussed it also. Dan Didio for DC fans is definitely among that list.
That was a death sentence for a book.
People when they see him definitely shake their heads and like, please God, no. I told you, I felt like the character Sideways had a ton of potential.
Until his name was attached to it. And then it was a death sentence.
And it made me sad that a character that had so much potential was anchored by Dan Didio.
And it's gone now.
Thankfully, is no longer at DC. Hopefully he does not become an albatross for some other company that
stays far away from comics. Far, far away.
I might recommend that he go work for the New York Yankees.
Absolutely. Couldn't hurt.
I don't know. Who else do you think really elicits that kind of reaction within the...
I think for multiple reasons, but I think Warren Ellis is a very...
polarizing
figure. I know some people who've worked with him have said it was great. Some people who've worked with him, both male and female, have said they never want to work with him again. He's a very... just a very polarizing figure. I know he can be rough to work with. He has put out some really good stories. There's obviously some other things going on right now that make him polarizing in different ways. But even before then, like he's been a guy where people are like, the name. He's written some great stuff, but a lot of people have said, like that's cool, but I wouldn't want to work with the guy.
Yeah, I feel like Punchline when she was first announced was in that category, but I feel like she's been fleshed out enough that people are kind of like becoming softer on their stance for her.
I think so. I think a little bit. I think some people are still entrenched in that camp and are like, not my Harley Quinn, even though like she's clearly not trying to replace her. But
yeah, but I think that she had that lightning rod kind of effect at first. Weapon H, the Hulk Wolverine mashup character, definitely had that kind of reaction, which I felt bad for because I read it and I liked the story. It was actually well done. I know I told you that also, but you also heard people keep telling me like it's Wolverine and Hulk mashed up. I don't know. I
mean, it is, but it doesn't mean it's bad.
The story was really good.
You know who it is? Damian Wayne.
Damian Wayne.
He's
the lightning rod.
So many people absolutely hate that kid, and every time they try to change him, DC's tried to figure it out. The best I think he got was when Peter Tomasi had him with John Kent, and they had the Super Sons. But like when Grant Morrison brought him out, like, oh my goodness, did people hate this kid? They were like, why did you do? I mean, it was already like, it was a weird backstory about how he was conceived with Talia and everything. Like, it was just like so many unnecessary details and just a jerk for no reason to everybody and anything.
He also comes across as like the youngest Robin. Like,
he is the youngest Robin by far, but he thinks he's 25 and he just has this attitude, and it's just like nobody quite knows what to do with him, and he's been entrenched in the family now for however many years. Like, you can't really get rid of him at this point, but not a lot of people necessarily like him or want him there. Which is
again why it makes me angry about DC aging up Jonathan Kent. Like, he did the impossible. He made Damian likable.
Yes, a little bit. He made him a little more likable, and now that he's, John Kent's an adult now, pretty much, he's like now firmly entrenched with his own series coming out of like, nope, solo on my own. I don't need you guys. Forget this. I'm doubling down. I'm going to be even more of a jerk to everyone.
I will give one more, and if you have any more, you can throw them out there also. I will give one more, though, and I think that's Brian Michael Bendis. I think a lot of people elicit an immediate reaction to him, either very hot or very cold. I think the very cold numbers are growing and the very hot numbers are dropping. I think people really enjoyed him at first, and I think more people are becoming kind of tired of his writing style, and I think that people kind of put him in a certain category. I don't know if he'll become absolutely a lightning rod, just because I think that a lot of comic fans love Miles Morales so much that they're not going to... And also Jessica Jones. His contributions cannot be like denied.
He's not going to be like cast out of the society and never talked about again. He has done a lot of things.
Yeah. Did you have any more to add to the list?
I mean, I'm going to throw one out that's going to really anger some of the older generation that's been collecting for a while. But Frank Miller, now, again, and this coming from a guy, the first comic book I read was Dark Knight Returns, and it is amazing in year one, and he has done a lot of amazing things for comics, but something happened to that man.
So you put him kind of in
somewhere along the line where
put
now...
him in the Bendis category then?
Yes, where some people will read everything he does, like, doesn't matter what it's about, especially if it's Batman, though certainly like they will jump on, they will do Dark Knight, 7, like they will follow that train all the way down. But I think a lot of people will say just the overall quality, both in art and in his writing style.
So when they teamed up Frank Miller and John Romita Jr. on
for me, that was probably the worst thing that could have happened if I was plotting it out. But I mean, like some people, again, they will die on that hill. They will say, and again, I am in no way like bashing Frank Miller and saying he should never have been, because who knows where comics would have been if Dark Knight Returns hadn't happened. Obviously, he's done amazing things for the industry, but there is a time where you can just say, hey, like, I've done enough. I can, go off and retire. The longer he tries to stay in the game, I do feel he's wearing down that reputation, and he is,
He's damaging himself.
He's damaging him. He's hurting himself more than he's helping himself.
Well, they did team up with Azzarello in the last one to do the co-writing with him, and to help him out with that. Yeah.
Did it though?
Well, I guess we'll turn the page on that, and we'll come back to the creators at a later point. And I just want to make it clear, we're not really bad mouthing any of these creators. Chandler and I both love comics, and part of the fun is to poke at some of the bigger names of the industry. We don't necessarily mean that we like to.
We certainly don't want them to poke back.
We like to have fun with things like that. We do want to thank you for watching. We do also want to ask you to LCS, like, comment, and subscribe to Brainstorm Comics and Gaming's YouTube channel. If you don't already, you can also go to our website, brainstormcomics.com, and sign up for our newsletter. We also, every week, do the High Five, where we give our top 5 picks of the books we think you should pay attention to for the new releases. If you haven't done that yet this week, definitely go check that out. You'll see some books with first appearances, first issues, new story arcs, or a big event that we think you should pay attention to. We want to thank you for watching, as always, and have a good day.